Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Does astral projection prove we live in the Matrix? In this video, we're going to discuss how astral projection seems to point to the fact that we live in a universe that more closely resembles a 3D video game or the movie The Matrix than it does our current standard view of the universe. In the standard view of the universe, the Einsteinian universe, if you will, the E equals MC squared universe, the one that we normally understand and have been brought up to believe in, there's a number of laws, and don't worry, I'm not going to get into a lot of astrophysics because I couldn't if I wanted to. But there are a number of laws that seem to be inviolable, unbreakable. The speed of light is the ultimate barrier. For instance, it's 186,282 miles per second, or for our metric friends, that's 299,792 kilometers per second. Whether you're measuring that in miles or kilometers, it sounds pretty darn fast, doesn't it? However, it's a problem for future space travel because even though that sounds awfully fast, space, as we have been taught, is awfully large and awfully big. And it would take forever to get anywhere, even at those amazing speeds. Another truism, which is part of our overall universal belief system, is that there is the past, the present, and the future. The past no longer exists. It happened, it's gone. It now only remains in the memories of those who experienced it. The present is happening right now. And that is typically the world that we exist in, that we operate in. And then, of course, there's the future. The future does not exist yet. It has not been created or realized. So it's out there somewhere, but we have no idea. It's just not been created or been brought into existence as of yet. And real briefly, these are the two laws, the two major understandings that surround our current view, or a standard view, of the universe. Now, in the physical world, the scientists tell us that Einstein's theories gel very well for the big stuff. And oh, by the way, I know there's theories about using wormholes and other sorts of exotic ways to travel in space or go into the future, but none of that's been proven yet, so we're not even going to get into that. But we're told that the standard Einsteinian theories start breaking down when we get very, very small, for instance, into the quantum levels. So that leads scientists to start to theorize that perhaps reality is somewhat different than we think it is. And that's where the holographic universe theory came from. And that started in the 90s, and a lot of very smart people have said that through various observations of our universe, they think it could be one big, vast, complex hologram. Theoretical physicists, astrophysicists, investigating irregularities in the cosmic microwave background, which is the afterglow after the Big Bang, they found that there's substantial evidence supporting a holographic explanation of the universe. In fact, as much as there is for the traditional explanation of these irregularities using the theory of cosmic inflation. Okay, so that's That's a big word salad there, I think. The bottom line is there's some doubt in our typical theory of what happened at the Big Bang, and that some of this background radiation, there's some irregularities that are beyond me to understand, but they do exist. Anyway, the holographic universe is an idea that, as I said, was first talked about in the 90s. And it makes up our 3D reality. But in actuality, it is contained on a 2D surface on its boundaries. And it's kind of like, it's not really the best example, but imagine you're watching a 3D film in a movie theater. We see the pictures as having height, width, and crucially depth, which in fact originates on a flat 2D screen. The difference, of course, in our 3D universe is that we can touch objects and the projection is real from our perspective. Let's talk more about the Matrix and I think video games, because I think it's a little bit easier, at least for me, to use examples from that genre, and I hope that it'll be a little bit easier for y'all as well. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about The Matrix. If I need to do a spoiler alert for a 21-year-old movie. When it came out in 1999, it was a big revolution. It really opened up my mind, gave me a lot to think about. If you haven't seen the movie, or maybe it's been a while since you've seen it, and if you haven't seen it, my goodness, see it. It's about a world that is controlled by these highly intelligent machines. And they have created this 2D program called the Matrix. And if you want to look at it on a computer screen, you can kind of see it. But what they've done is they've connected up every human that they have access to, and they use them like one giant battery, which of course is a stupid use for humans. In the original script, they were going to have them connected into one big database, so that they'd be able to use the brain power of all these humans. But at that point in time, the executives thought that was a little bit beyond people's understanding, and so they decided to make a batteries. And I guess they got some money probably from Duracell when they showed the Duracell battery in the movie. But at any rate, in this 2D program, they created this giant, very real feeling hologram, and they had people hooked up to it, hardwired into the program. So they were going about their lives thinking that they were in the 20th century and everything seemed very real to them. It was very 3D, they could touch and feel things, but it was actually just a 2D program. And the people who were removed from this program were trained, and in such a way that when they were reintroduced into the Matrix, they could stretch the rules. They could jump higher or further than should normally be possible, for instance. Now, the main character, Neo, played by the immortal Keanu Reeves, who never really seems to age, he eventually cracked the code. He learned the cheat codes, if you will, and was able to break rules of the Matrix, not just stretch them. Eventually, he was able to fly and dodge bullets, and eventually not dodge them, but just stop them cold, because he was able to hack into this world, into this hologram, into this matrix, and control it. In video games, which I think are even more instructive, we're confronted with a world, most especially when you're using the 3D headsets that are now available. You become immersed in this game, which is, in essence, a 2D program that somebody wrote out, that they use technical magic, especially, as I said, with these 3D VR type headsets, to project this reality into a 3D format where you can now become immersed in the game. They design it on the surface to mirror our physical standard view of the universe. You start off in one room, You move to another. Now you're in the present in this room next to the dragon's lair. In the past, you started out maybe on the outside of the castle. The future, you'll be at the finish, and you'll be in the final room to conquer the dungeon master or what have you. But that's in the future. You don't know about that yet. You can't get there yet because it's the future. However, we know that actually the entire game, the entire simulation has already been written. It all can be accessed through things like cheat codes. Cheat codes, of course, are little hacks that the game developers sometimes include that allow you to have perfect health or not be harmed or get all the ammunition you want all at once. It also allows you to, in some cases, go back to a room you were back in the past, or to progress to a future room or level that for you was in the future. There's things like save points where you can save where you're at so that if you get killed in the future, you can go back into the past and start over again. So these cheat codes allow you to break the rules of this universe. And that's what got me thinking about astral projection. When I was a little kid, my astral projections were fairly simple. I thought it was cool being able to leave my house in the middle of the night when I was supposed to be in bed without the knowledge of my parents, out there running around, going to the playground, running around my city, exploring the woods, doing all kinds of interesting things. Eventually, learning that I could jump hot or run fast, and eventually fly. And but I mostly flew around my own little city and my own little neighborhood. You know, when you're a little kid, you're only so comfortable. And my knowledge of what was possible, keep in mind that I had no instruction. There were no videos. YouTube was nothing but a distant dream. And books, if they existed, weren't really at my command when I was in elementary school. So they were fairly simple types of projections. When I got a little older, certainly into my teens, and I started being introduced to a variety of astral projection, if not books, at least books that had paragraphs or a few pages talking about astral projection, until eventually, of course, the groundbreaking Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe actually was released, when I started opening up to other possibilities. For instance, travel in space, and then eventually travel in time. Now we know in our standard view of the universe that the maximum speed limit is the speed of light. And we know about past, present, and future, and those laws. However, I began to break those laws. Now, at the time, I didn't really understand how or why I could do this. And to this day, I'm still wondering for conclusions. I just knew I could do it, and I just accepted it at face value. But I have to believe that the astral body is some sort of electromagnetic energy. Perhaps it's energy that we don't completely understand yet or can't completely detect. But I have a hard time believing that if our standard view of the universe is correct, that somehow it can do something much better than what light could do. And to my conscious mind, I've only ever traveled through a wormhole once, and that was when I followed that Loosh train. But it's not something that I have a lot of experience with, and I certainly didn't do it in my teens. So, how was I able to go back in time to see a 75 million year old dino crocodile? How was I able to travel 50 years into the future and witness a city of that time where I walked into the entrance and was scanned and set off an alarm? Today, my wife tends to think that maybe it's because it was looking for my temperature and didn't find one. It set off an alarm because maybe that alarm is programmed to go off if you're outside a certain range of temperature, which I most certainly was. Or my trip to 100 years in the future to that health complex. Or my future travel to my tribe 10 to 12,000 or so years into the future. Or even my trip billions of years into the future, witnessing the eventual dissolution and destruction of the earth. How can that stuff be possible? How can I travel to the moon in an instant? How could I travel to the planets? For instance, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, or foreign stars. When I traveled and visited that culture, that was kind of an amphibian type culture. I don't know exactly how far that planet was, but it had to be many light years. Yet I was able to get there, as I was our own planets, in an instant. So here I am breaking the two major rules of our universe. I'm breaking the speed limit. I'm fracturing it. Traveling many, many light years in an instant. And I'm also breaking the past, present, and future laws. It's almost like astral projection is some sort of cheat code. If we live in the Matrix, then perhaps I'm the version of Neo. Not that I'm that special. Obviously, there's a lot of people who astral project. But perhaps we're all Neos, and we are accessing these cheat codes that if we live in a hologram, an entirely extremely sophisticated one, where these laws ordinarily are very nicely existent, at least in the larger sense in our physical universe, that in the astral, somehow now we have access to cheat codes. The reason I can go back in the past or the future is that it's already in existence. It's in a program. And all I have to do is by using my will, access that program. Now, if you're worried about the problem of free will, remember that if this program does indeed exist, it is a phenomenally complex and advanced reality program. In our video games, which would seem like stone tools compared to our technology today, if we're talking about the type of program, a highly complex program that we're talking about right now, free will would be preserved. When you're in a video game, our primitive video technology, you can decide when you open the door and you see this gigantic dragon sitting on a pile of gold and treasure, you can decide to go in there with your party and fight it. Or you can close the door and decide that he's too powerful and you're going to go somewhere else in the dungeon. So even in this highly simplistic, if you think about it, video game, you have a freedom of choice. So even if we are in a simulated universe, we would still have freedom of thought, freedom of action, because the program is written with that preserved. Or at least a very, very reasonable facsimile thereof, such that we would be unable to detect that it doesn't exist. So even if freedom of will is being impinged upon, it's done so subtly that we wouldn't notice it. So one way or another, we at least seem to have freedom of movement, free will, because of the complexity of this program. So to wrap up, We have the standard Einsteinian view of the universe where the speed of light is the ultimate limit and the past, present, and future exists with their current laws. However, astral projection and the abilities to travel instantly anywhere in space and to travel into the past and into possible futures, let's make sure we use that term, that we may not live in this standard view of the universe. We may just live in a extremely complex virtual reality system, which you can call the Matrix if you like. At any rate, I would very much like to get your opinion of this interesting subject. If you like this video, please like it, share. If you know people who might be interested, subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you have subscribed, hit that bell. Make sure you get notified whenever I post a new video. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.